Today we will be fixing the AC, the rear AC, on a 2008 Cadillac Escalade ESV. As you can see here, I've already removed this back passenger side panel that covers the rear AC unit. It's just held on by clips. There's no screws or anything. It just pulls out. You have to pull the bottom trim piece here, and then a little bit of the top trim piece as it overlaps, and it should just pull out. They're just held in by clips on these little holes throughout here. So what we're going to need for this job is a basic tool set, some Freon, a vacuum pump to evacuate the system when we're done putting it back together, and an AC manifold set to be able to see whether or not it's holding vacuum, as well as we will be replacing the front orifice tube, which is basically a filter for the system. That will go in the front section, and the expansion valve, which is what we assume is the issue with this particular model, and I'll show you where to find that in a minute. But this piece here has some valves inside of it that can get clogged or gummed up from people using the wrong types of Freon. Quick note on that: with Freon, you can pick up Freon for pretty cheap. I picked this up at Walmart for about $5 a can. I know there's going to be people out there that say, oh, there's different levels of Freon and certain Freons are better than others. The main thing that I found in my experience is that Freon is Freon as long as you don't buy Freon with stop leak in it. The stop leak in Freon is what will usually cause the issues in your system. It's better to replace O-rings if necessary, and actually fix the leak rather than just spraying stop leak in there. The reason being is because the way an air conditioner works is it turns this Freon from liquid to gas and condenses it back to liquid and then turns it back into gas, and through that process it gathers and releases the heat in the system, and there's tiny little ports that turn the liquid into gas under high pressure that can be clogged by the stop leak, causing your system to maybe work temporarily and then fail prematurely. So the next thing that you'll need to do to be able to expose this is there's some tiny screws which I've already removed. As you can see here, I've got my little bag of screws. These little screws here are held here, here, and all the way around the fan unit, the blower unit, and there's two vertical screws here that you'll need to remove, as well as a plug-in over here and a ground nut. Quick note: before you tear into this and start recharging the whole system, if the front system is working but the rear system is not, which is what's happening with this vehicle, the first thing that you'll want to check is this unit here. You'll want to have somebody switch it from hot to cold and make sure that this is turning. This is actually the actuator door that switches between hot and cold. Sometimes that's all it is. It's an easy fix. You just replace that and everything's fine. Unfortunately, with this particular vehicle, that's not the case. This is working fine, but we're just not receiving any cold Freon to the rear system here. And so we're going to be removing this, and right down in here is where this expansion valve is, that is most likely clogged, causing the system not to work in the rear. I'll show you where it all is. If you come underneath the rear of the car near the exhaust system, hopefully we can see this pretty well. So right up here is where your AC lines and your heat lines come in. The ones to the right are the AC, the ones to the left carry hot coolant to your heater core in the rear. What these pipes here are connected to is your expansion valve. That's that square that you can kind of see behind. And that is what we'll be replacing today. So let me get this taken apart and I'll be right back. Okay, so once you've removed all the screws that hold this together, these are held on by a clip system, which you'll need a flathead screwdriver to pop. I've already popped these ones. There's just a few that are holding, like this one right here. Sorry, look at the camera on there. So you're just going to kind of pry up and then just pull back on the unit to separate it. So I'm going to go around and make sure that all of those are popped. And so this unit should just come out. So as you can see on the inside, this is actually your blower motor. This piece here spins and blows the air through the system. And this is your door actuator that switches between hot and cold. As you can see here, you've got your heater core on the left and your rear AC condenser on the right. And then there again, right down there, that is your expansion valve, and that's what we'll be replacing today. You can see this one's kind of got some corrosion or something built up on it. Okay, so under the hood, you'll see over here you've got your air conditioning canister, and this is your high pressure, I believe. Yeah, this is your high pressure, and this is your low pressure valve. This is actually what we'll be using to fill it. And then right in here is where we will find our orifice tube for the front system. And so just to kind of clarify on that, the orifice tube is for the front system, and then the rear system uses an expansion valve. And those are both of the pieces that we'll be replacing today. Those are both of the pieces that can get clogged or can get gummed up with some of that stop leak. There's lots of reasons that it could fail. A few other things to note is anywhere where there's a connection, like back here, or where it connects there, or even there, or where these lines connect to the AC compressor, which we can't really see very well, but it's kind of down in there. That is where those O-rings would come into play. If you did have a system leak and it wasn't holding a charge at all, or it was losing charge very quickly, those are the places that I would check first. So now I'm going to evacuate the system, and I'll be right back once we start actually replacing parts. Okay, so this is just a 13mm bolt that holds this together. So you're just going to take this off, and at this point, if you haven't depressurized the system, it will release any excess pressure once you break this seal. Now obviously there's some federal guidelines and things like that as far as venting this stuff, so make sure that you follow the laws in your area. I'm required to say that because I'm on video. I'll be right back. Alright, now being that the AC system is very sensitive to dirt and debris, be very careful as you remove it not to get any dirt or anything inside. Once I removed this, I actually tucked a little piece of paper towel inside and then wrapped a towel around it just to prevent any other further debris from falling on it. Now this is what you'll see. This is our expansion valve, and as you can see through the dirt there is a Torx head on either side of that stud that's holding it to the condenser on the top. And so the next thing is we're going to remove those screws, which should allow us to just pull straight down on this and get it out of there. I'll be right back. So as you can see, the expansion valve has been removed, and you can kind of see some of those pistons and things inside of there. Let's see if we can get some light on it. So those are the types of things inside there that can get clogged. Just to show you what it looks like from underneath. You will be looking at the bottom of the condenser there. And take note that there is a couple of specialized crush rings or sealing washers there. These are included with your expansion valve when you purchase it. Let's go to the top and take a look. And so that is where we're at. You can see those holes where those Torx head bolts were holding the expansion valve to the bottom. At this point, I'm going to take apart and clean where all of those washers are. And as you can see here, included in our new kit, we have our expansion valve with a new stud and a little packet of O-rings. So we should have enough O-rings to go on either side of it for the tubes on the bottom as well as the tubes on the top. So I'm going to get that put together and I'll be back. So interesting find here. Something that I was not aware of on this particular vehicle. There is a secondary orifice tube inside the condenser tube, and if we can get this to focus, you'll be able to see that this is pretty nasty, and so definitely needs to be replaced. Looks like there's also one on the tube side, these pipes that are covered up here on the inside as well. So I will need to make another trip to the parts store and see if I can't get my hands on these before we put this back together. Okay, so the auto parts store said that this part doesn't exist, so what we ended up doing was just cleaning it out with some brake clean, making sure it's nice and dry, and we're gonna throw it back in for the time being, I guess. Probably could get it from the dealership, but I am not gonna bother at this time. So we're gonna put it back in, put our new expansion valve on, and go from there. So I actually found it a lot easier just to remove the condenser to make sure that we get our new sealing washers mounted correctly, and to be able to do this without having to be underneath the car. So you're just going to want to make sure that you get a good fitment on there, and then throw your Torx heads back in, and we are going to tighten this down, not ridiculously tight, just a hair past snug, just to kind of give those washers a good seal. If you do it too much, we are working with aluminum here, so it will strip the threads. To get a good seal though, as soon as you start to feel tension, I would kind of alternate. Probably not 100% necessary. Just helps my own insecurities, I guess. Helps me feel better about it. And we're just going to take turns here. tell it's seated nice. So you can kind of feel, at least I can, just kind of where it starts to fight you. Just give it maybe an 1/8 of a turn there and then call it good. We're plenty sealed up, so. Alright, and then we're just gonna set this back in there. You can see our hole down there. You kind of have to rock this plastic to be able to fit it all back in there. I'll put the camera down for this part. Alright, so there it is. You kind of have to pull up on this plastic to be able to fit it back in there. But there she is, all seated nicely, and as you can see, nice and shiny. So now we'll go back underneath, make sure that we get our crush gaskets put on the tubes on the underside, make sure that they're clean, and we'll put those on next. Okay, there we are, all installed. One thing to note is that those crush gaskets have one edge that is raised. The raised edge goes towards the expansion valve on either side. So now we're going to go work on the front half. See if we can't feel it. Okay, so we ran into a little snag with this vehicle. So it turns out that the previous owners have completely blocked off the rear AC. So this is happened inside the front fender well. Somebody has cut it and capped it off with compression fittings. Luckily, I was able to pick up some compression fittings at a local store to fix it. So I'll get those put on and then we'll go from there. Alright, I was able to splice these cut pipes together with some compression fittings I picked up. So hopefully that fixes our issue there. Okay, at this point we're going to be replacing the front orifice tube. As you can see, I've already cracked this loose here. You want to have a towel under there in case there's any Freon or anything dripping at this point. But you'll just separate this, and then you can kind of see how the pipe is enlarged to fit that tube in there. So you'll just separate those by pulling them apart carefully as not to crack or bend the pipe. Pull the old tube out and put the new one back in. Alright, in order to get this orifice tube out, I had to use a small pick tool. If you have something hooked or if you have a small pair of needle nose, that may work as well. If you look, there is a little hook at the top that you can snatch. So if you look at that, that is pretty well gelled up. That is the doings of Stop Leak. So as you can see, Stop Leak has wreaked havoc. If you compare the new one looks like versus the old one, you can see that this system is not flowing well. So I'm going to get this new one put in. I will replace this O-ring for good measure. Anytime that you break a seal, it's a good idea to replace the O-ring. That's why I purchased that set of O-rings. Okay, after our last chapter of patching the cap job, we found out why this particular rear system was disabled. When I put some pressure in the system, I found a pinhole leak right under the passenger door. You can kind of see where my creeper is. We found a pinhole leak, and instead of paying $400 at the dealer to buy a whole new set of tubes to go from the front to the rear, I cut this piece out. As you can see, there is the pinhole right here. So I was able to use my pipe cutter and remove this broken piece of pipe, or sorry, leaking piece of pipe, and splice in a new piece. Let me show you what that looks like. order to get to this, I had to remove the running board and pop these clips open that hold these pipes in place, pull it out far enough that I could get my pipe cutter on it. Important note, the first time I tried this, I tried using just normal compression fittings from Home Depot, like this, with the ferrule coming out of the back end, or built-in ferrules. These leaked, so I ended up going back to my specialty fitting store, which you should be able to find one somewhere who does hydraulics or air brake systems. These fittings are actually built for air brakes. There's still compression fittings, but the ferrule is a separate piece, and it bites down on both sides, creating a better seal. In this particular case, since I took so much of the pipe out, I had to splice in a piece of copper pipe. I have already recharged, evacuated and recharged the system and tested for leaks, and it is holding just fine. Okay, this is what I use to evacuate the system. You can buy this at your local Harbor Freight if you want to save some money, or if you want to spend some big bucks. You'll need a vacuum system and a set of AC gauges to be able to evacuate the system. It's important to evacuate the system anytime you open the system, because any sort of atmosphere that gets into the system, any sort of air, can cause condensation, cause freezing in the lines, cause the ports to freeze. Your system won't cool as well if you don't evacuate, just because it's not pure Freon that's running through the system. So it's important you evacuate. After I evacuated the system, check for leaks. I refilled the system, and you can use your cans of Freon. I prefer getting a fitting like this. It has a shutoff valve on the can, so that you don't waste it if you spring a leak at the end here. So you can shut it off and turn it on. And you're gonna hook this. On this particular model, the low side is right back there. That little black cap that you see, that's where you'll hook this up. This is the high side here. You'll use that during the evacuation, but not during fill if you're using this procedure. Obviously, if you're a shop and you're using a full evacuation and refill system, you'll be using both with your gauges. But you'll want to refill this to spec, check for leaks, and make sure that you're not losing any Freon anywhere. It looks like all of the repairs that we've done today have held. Our orifice tube fitting there, our expansion valve in the back, and our 3 places that we had to splice this system together. Hopefully it holds for a long time. I don't see a reason why not. From what I'm told at the dealership, if you buy that set of tubes, it comes in 2 pieces anyways, and you have to splice it together when you get it. So I figured, why drop the money when I could just splice the one that I have. Anyways, consequently, this vehicle cools well in the front and the back, and I wish you luck in your endeavors.